We love chook in our family, but it's gotta be a well brought up chook. And I prefer to always use a big bird because it has so much more flavour. So my choice is 2 kilos plus. And this one though, I'm going to show you how easy it is to do for a lot of people very simply in the carving, because we've boned the chook out already, as you can ask your providor to do for you. And we're going to do a stuffing. Now, in our family, there's a bit of a competition as to who could beat the stuffing and do the best. But always, no matter who is cooking it, there's always citrus in the stuffing. And today, I've used kumquats. Now, if you don't have the chance to have kumquats, you can, however, use just lemon and orange peel. But more of that as we go. The other thing we always put in our stuffing is liver. And it's just about sealing the liver, hardly cooking it at all. So I'm putting some oil into the pan until it's really hot. And this time, I'll actually put my apron on because being a messy cook, I'm also a grubby cook. There are two different things there. So that'll stop me getting in too much of a mess and let the pan get really, really hot. Okay, you can see the vapors, I can see the vapors coming off, so we're ready to put the liver in. If it's not sizzling like that the moment you put the liver in, then it's not hot enough. Not too much in the pan, that's as much as I'll do, and I'm really just getting colour on one side and tossing it, but it does spit, so be careful not to burn yourself. This is how little cooking livers need. Now, there's one bit that's fatter than the other, so I'm going to take out the thinner bits of the liver. Am I shouting above the stove? And leave the 2 fatter bits in for another moment, but not much longer. And then I will let the plumper livers rest in the heat of the pan, whereas these I've put to one side, only just sealed. Now, in here, I have onions that I've cooked off. Now, doesn't matter if they're finely chopped or medium dice, it's about cooking them slowly with some fresh rosemary from the garden before, chopped just before you're going to use it. And the oil in the pan is actually important to the final coming together of the stuffing. So here I have that beautiful burnish. Really lovely. That would be fantastic to eat just as it is, on top of a steak or something similar. But if you don't have that lovely burnish, you're not going to get the flavour you want in the stuffing. So now, it's important to move while the onions are warm, and that is your breadcrumbs. With breadcrumbs, make your own, and best of all, if they're a sourdough crumb, but have some texture still in them. Don't buy them already made, they'll never be the same. You need the onions still to be warm because you want to envelop all those flavours together. And we're going to have the kumquats. Now, these are dehydrated kumquats that are made in Renmark. They are just fantastic, and I've reconstituted them in some verjuice, and they've just sat there for 30 minutes to become this. They're quite hard here. 30 minutes, they're reconstituted and wonderful. Pistachios that I've roasted first. I would never use a nut without roasting it to give it that freshness of flavour. I've got lemon thyme. I like a lot of herbs in a stuffing. We've already got the rosemary cooked with the onions. I'll put the parsley in last. And whilst the stuffing hasn't come together with the amount of oil, I'm going to use perhaps a half an egg or a whole egg. I don't want to have much egg in the stuffing, but I do want it to come together. So I'm going to whisk the egg first and then see how much of it I need. But first, salt. Need salt in a stuffing. It's fairly cool now, so I'll put the parsley in and let's see how much of the egg I use. I'm going to use a whole egg today. Perhaps 3/4. The egg does give it a different texture, which is why I'm avoiding using too much of it. But it has to come together. No, got to go the whole hog and use the whole. Now, I haven't put the livers in the stuffing because once I have the boned out chook, I'm going to lay them along the centre. Now, that's how I know the stuffing is moist enough. It's coming together in my hands, not unlike the pastry, a sour cream pastry. That's how you know you have enough. But I'll just give it a good mix just to make absolutely sure. Now, in just making the stuffing, it's cooled down just by mixing it around because you wouldn't want to put a warm stuffing into a cold chook. But let me get myself organised and we'll go to the next stage. When you make a stuffing, if it's not lovely to eat just like this, it's not good enough. That's good. Now, you can ask for a chook to be boned out. And remember, this is not a chicken, it's a well brought up chook because you need that size. And there's just a little trick. You need to lay it all flat and have it all fairly even, but you can see how it's broken here, and that's just the confirmation of the chook being boned. We have an extra little bit of skin here, and I'm going to cut that off and put it down here so we are well covered with skin at the bottom. Don't have to, but it just, every little bit helps. Okay, now I'm going to put the stuffing. Now I've made more stuffing than I need because I can't help myself, but the stuffing just as little tidbits because I do have a vegetarian in the family, and that means I can do little patties of stuffing for her because there's the livers were cooked separately, so there's nothing in there. So that's 3/4 of the stuffing I've used, and I'm going to lay the livers on top of the stuffing. Right down, because in our family, if we lose that on the liver, we're cross. And then we're going to roll, which is the best side, roll it up. Now, a chef would call this a ballantine, but the way I work is very rustic, so we'll call it rolled stuffed chook, shall we? Let's not be fancy about it. We want it to pull it in a nice cylinder, and the whole concept of that is when it's cooked, all you have to do is carve after you've rested it, of course, and it's just so simple. Because carving a chook at the dinner table is a skill that we've lost for good reason. It's difficult. I'm going to truss it, and I always think of trussing, once again because I've only ever taught myself how to cook, as a parcel I want to send in the post, which means I, don't have too long a string so I can manage it. And of course this is cooking twine, so I've just twisted around. You've all made parcels to send in the post. I'm going to do it from this end. Okay. And this is just to keep it nice and tight so it doesn't flop it doesn't flop. Nothing very special about this, unless you've got a lot of people watching you. Okay, we want it fairly even. I'll tuck this little bit back in, I don't want to lose anything. Fairly even. We'll do the other end. I'll turn it over and not turn it over, just flip it around, tie this up here, coming in from the other end. So, as neat a parcel as you can make, and don't be too concerned if you've got a little bit coming out each end. But remember, this is not a chefy thing. This is ready to just smother with some extra virgin olive oil and some verjuice. Now, you can just use butter, but the thing about, and I'll put some salt in it, the thing about the verjuice and olive oil, what it does, you could brush it on, but I'm a smotherer. What it does is give you that first caramelization, because we're going to cook this at a high temperature, and we want it to get a beautiful, beautiful colour, a beautiful burnish. And this is just an aid. This is ready for the oven. We're cooking to the oven probe, and put it in the thickest, meatiest part, put the probe right in, but it needs to be sitting up somewhat. And we're putting it straight onto this tray. Whoops, I'll tuck you in. And into the oven. We're using a Moisture Plus program, preheated, already charged up with its water, because we're giving it one burst of steam. Now let me just set the temperature, continue cooking with a food probe, yes. I've got cooking at 220 degrees. I want the core temperature just to be 57, because I'm going to rest it a long time. And manual burst of steam, start. And the burst of steam just will make it more humid in the vacuum of the oven, and will aid that regular golden browning. And if it was not wanting to be really brown, as I do, golden brown, we might give it 2 bursts, but 1 burst will do. And we now leave it, and the probe will tell us when it's cooked. The probe has told me that the chook is ready to take out. Oh, look at that burnish. Very happy with that. And even though it's just at 57, this needs a long resting. Now, the resting can be, I can take this out. The trick that I always do when I take a chicken out of the oven, even a boned one, is I just drizzle it with a little verjuice, and it creates these juices as it sits. And it has to sit for quite a while, at least 20 minutes. If you've got a warming drawer, you could set it on 65, because that's the final temperature it will come to, and so it won't overcook. But other than that, we can just leave it covered in foil, let it rest 20 minutes, and then take off your string and carve it so easily. And let me tell you, you're going to absolutely love it.